Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Florida's first congressional district debate, hosted by Conservative Circle. I'm your host and moderator, Jeffrey Edenfield. Joining me is my co-moderator, Jared Trinidad of Freedom Uncensored. Thank you to everyone tuning in to this debate live on YouTube. We'd like to extend a warm welcome to our debating candidates tonight. They are Republican candidate John Frankman and Democratic candidate Gay Valimont. Thank you, candidates, for your time and for joining us. Tonight's debate will give voters of Florida's first congressional district the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates on current issues that will shape the future of our community and our nation. Our topics are economy and cost of living, military and veterans, artificial intelligence and data centers, education and students, and healthcare. And now I will turn it over to our moderator as he explains the rules of tonight's debate.
Good evening, I'm Jared Trinidad, your co-moderator and host of Freedom Uncensored, and I'll explain the rules of the debate. First, each candidate will have 2 minutes to present their opening statement. The order of opening statements has already been determined. After both candidates have presented their 2-minute opener, we will begin with our topic areas in no particular order. During topics, each candidate will have a total of 2 minutes to speak about a topic area as it is presented by the moderators. After both candidates have spoken, we will rotate and each candidate will present their rebuttal. Rebuttals should be between 30 seconds and 1 minute. Rotations and time windows will be consistent across all topic areas during this debate. After all topic areas have been covered, we will move to our questions segment. During this time, candidates will respond to questions from voters and patrons directly. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer questions for a total of 4 selected questions. If at any point a candidate exceeds their time limit during speeches, rebuttals, or responses to questions, a moderator has the right to and may or may not interrupt the candidates for time's sake. The moderators have the job of introducing topic areas, questions, and maintaining order during the debate. This debate will last for roughly 1 hour, and now I'll turn over to Jeffrey.
All right, thank you. Now let's welcome our candidates, Democratic candidate Gay Valimont and Republican candidate John Frankman. Thank you both candidates for being here.
Sure.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Let's go ahead and begin with our opening statements. Our first will be Gay Valimont.
My name is Gay Valimont, and I'm running for Congress to fight for working families. Times are hard economically and getting harder every day. Our seat in Congress should be one that brings federal funds back into the district to solve our problems, not used for showboating or national media interviews. I will work hard to bring prices down and increase trust in our government by doing it the right way, with transparency and decency, because the only way we can have a functioning democratic republic is to have all participants buy in. There are ways to solve the problems of Northwest Floridians. We just need a representative passionate enough about our people to find the solutions and bring it home. My family has faced the worst that life has to offer, but I'm still standing because I'm resilient and determined. I understand the task at hand and will deliver for my neighbors.
All right, let's turn over to John Frankman for his opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for turning in. And thank you so much, Conservative Circle Podcast, for hosting this important discussion. I'm John Frankman, a devout Catholic, a husband, a former Special Forces Green Beret captain, and a fighter for faith and freedom. I didn't seek out politics, but politics found me when I was serving here in the district at 7th Special Forces Group and was forced out of the military because of the unlawful DoD COVID vaccine mandate. It was while I was advocating for service members up on the Hill that I realized we're never going to save this country with the current representation that we have. And right now, Republicans have the House and the Senate, yet nothing's getting done, and we're not getting any lasting conservative victories. This district is the most conservative in the state. It's the most veteran densely populated district in the country, and it's a very Christian place where the faith is expressed openly. It deserves a fighter who's going to take its values up to DC and to squeeze every ounce of red out of it. If elected to Congress, I'll fight for military and veterans to create affordability by paying down the $40 trillion debt, protect our civil liberties, especially medical freedom and against the surveillance state, fight for mass deportation of all illegal immigrants, to make accountability great again. That includes for the Epstein files, that includes for COVID, protect our Second Amendment rights, protect life from the moment of conception, defend farmers north of I-10, and protect Northwest Florida from the dangers of data centers. My opponent represents the dangers of Democrat policies, of large federal government, of high taxes. And we've seen under the Biden administration very high inflation we haven't seen for decades, as well as infringement on our personal liberties under COVID. And right now on August 18th, Republican primary voters, they have a choice. They can choose on whether they want politics as usual or establishment, or they can choose a proven fighter who's fought based on conscience, and they can vote for a fighter for faith and freedom who's going to protect Florida first. So I ask, enjoy the debate, and please considering supporting me during the primary August 18th. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll turn to Jared Trinidad for the first topic.
Thank you. And now for our first topic, the economy and cost of living. Families across Northwest Florida say groceries, utilities, and everyday expenses continue to stretch their budget. What federal actions would you support to reduce the cost of living without increasing the national debt?
Who's going first?
Yes.
I believe John can go first.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's totally true. People in Escambia, Walton, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa families, like those counties, they're paying more for groceries, for healthcare, for housing. And the only thing that we can point to, the biggest thing and the only solution is the $40 trillion debt. If you break it down, that means that every man, woman, and child would have to pay $118,000 to the federal government to pay it off. That's the invisible tax of inflation. That's what we have to attack. So I've been endorsed by the Republican Liberty Caucus. I am committed to shrinking the size of federal government, cutting down on waste, fraud, and abuse, not giving any money to foreign governments until we get our own spending under control, and going for energy independence. That's a huge way that we can cut down on those gas prices, and that fuels everything else. So those are just some of the policies that we need to get after. It's tough, but we need someone who's going to be willing to go up there, say no to party leadership when they want to print more money. And that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Okay. Yeah, you may present.
Thank you. So I have to correct John really quick. He talked about democratic policies and how democratic policies are not good for our government and the economy. The last person to balance the budget was a Democrat. So let's give Bill Clinton his props. Secondly, yes, the thing I hear most from walking around this district are people are going broke. And what are the things that are causing people to go broke? I use HUG. It's housing, healthcare, utilities, gas, and groceries. Those are the things that people complain about the most. And what is the fastest way for us to have lower grocery prices and lower gas prices is to get out of this illegal war that we are in currently, that has driven gas prices to an astronomical amount that is touching everybody. But as far as the overall economy, we have to get back to supporting the middle class. The big, beautiful bill, or the bill they call beautiful, fleeced the middle class. And without a strong middle class, our middle class can't spend their money if they don't have it. So we need to revisit the tax code and make the top 1% and the ultra rich pay their fair share. We also need to make sure that corporations pay their fair share, because the corporate tax rate has been the same since the 1980s. And trickle down economics did not work in the 1980s, and it certainly doesn't work now.
Thank you, Gay. John, you have 2 minutes to rebuttal Gay's answer.
Sure. So you talked about housing, healthcare, utilities, gas prices, and they're absolutely going up. But if we look at inflation, they went up the most recently under the Biden administration. And that was because of the amount of money that was being printed out, the trillions and trillions. And, we can look at Republicans, we can look at Democrats. I'm a little upset that Republicans are increasing the federal deficit right now. And if Democrats were like Bill Clinton back then, I think we'd be a lot more friendly with him right now. But I think your current Democrats, and especially Democrat socialists, who really want to tax the rich and go crazy, I mean, that's a bigger thing. I would be in favor of a flat tax or a national sales tax or some kind of combination of the two and getting rid of the IRS, because it is too confusing. And I agree, the middle class is being squeezed out. The reason they're being squeezed out is because the tax code makes it a lot easier for the ultra rich. And then those who are at the lowest are getting government handouts. So we need to get to some kind of situation where everybody pays their fair share. We get government out of the way and we let the free market economy work to create more jobs.
Okay, 1 minute of anything you like to agree or disagree with.
I agree. I believe that that John and I see the same. We probably don't have the same way of solving the problems, but we do agree that there is a problem with our economy. Also, I am glad to hear John talk about the deficit because typically Republicans don't talk about the deficit when it's on their watch. And our under the Trump administration and tariffs and this war, our deficit has ballooned and it's going to take years to pay it down.
Okay. Many first-time home buyers can no longer afford homes in Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Acalosa counties. What specific federal policies would you support to make home ownership more attainable? Gay, you may answer first.
Well, I don't know if y'all just saw, but the 21st Century Road to Housing Act just passed, which I think is fantastic. And what the 21st, it was a bipartisan bill. And what that is going to do is make it more affordable to build homes so that we have more inventory and competition becomes an issue so that people can afford to buy homes. Now, we need tax breaks for first-time home buyers, plain and simple. We have people coming out of college that can't get a job. They certainly can't afford a home. And that's not the American dream. The American dream was built on being able to afford your own home and have generational wealth. We have to get back to that. We have made homeownership so unattainable because our inventory is low and home prices have gone up. We need to increase the inventory, which we can do under the 21st Century Road to Housing Act that just passed, and give tax incentives to first-time home buyers.
John, you have 2 minutes for your statement.
The affordability, it all comes out to the federal deficit. Being $40 trillion in debt, having every person owing $118,000, the concept is simple. If you have $10 and 10 apples, every apple's worth $1. If you have $20 and 10 apples, every apple's worth $2. So unless we shrink the federal deficit, we're not going to get back to a place of affordability. So we really need to pay off the deficit. I'd say we need to get rid of the Fed and get back to some kind of hardback money. But one way to free up housing is to deport the tens of millions of illegal aliens who entered this country under the Biden administration. We need to do that because that's taking up housing, that's taking up jobs, might not necessarily be all the same areas we want to live in, but that is a burden on the taxpayer. But yeah, with tax breaks for first-time homebuyers, let's just simplify the tax code and go to that flat rate tax or the national sales tax, because I feel bad for kids your guys' age, and I appreciate you having this. I mean, really good on you. You know, I haven't heard anyone else asking us to debate, right? So good on you guys, but I understand there's a lot of concern about your future, and I get it. I totally get it. So we want to fight for you to make sure that you guys can buy homes later on and live the American dream.
Awesome, thank you. Gay, you have 1 minute for your rebuttal.
Oh, I'm good. The only thing I would say is that I'm not going to blame our housing crisis on immigrants. I believe that our immigration system is broken, and I believe that we're not doing better right now. I don't believe that mass deportation of people who are trying to seek refuge from countries that are in turmoil and I don't call people illegal. So there's that.
John, 1 minute. Anything you'd like to finish the question off with?
Yeah, I mean, just because we're kind of talking about illegal immigration right now, I will admit that the immigration system is broken. And as someone who married someone from a different country, that it's a total pain to try to get her to stay in this country. And that's something that I would work to make it where it's a simpler thing if you're applying for a K-1 or for a K-3. But when it comes to people who enter this country illegally, that's where we need to be. You know, we're a country of laws, we're a country of rules. We can certainly focus on the ones that commit crimes while they're still here. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to, if we don't have borders, we don't have a country. And I think it's crazy we haven't finished the border wall. That's where I'll go ahead and blame Republicans who are in the majority right now for just being lazy and enjoying being in their seats. So, yeah.
Thank you. Property insurance premiums have become one of the biggest financial burdens for Floridians. While insurance regulation is largely handled by the state, what role should Congress play in addressing the insurance crisis? John, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, now that we're talking about the insurance crisis, we certainly should be pointing out the former chief financial officer of Florida who oversaw the highest rising in insurance costs, Jimmy Patronis, who is the current representative who I'm facing in the primary, and Gay is facing. Well, no, she'll be facing me because we're gonna crush this.
Right.
Because this interview is going to go viral and everybody's going to see what a better candidate I am and how terrible Jimmy is. But we need to point and say, hey, the policies he did. Not holding the insurance companies accountable, but I think it is a state solution. I think federally what you can do is you can break up the oligopolies. Most different jobs or most corporations or sectors have 80-90% is controlled by 4 or 5 different corporations. And if you use antitrust laws to break those up, that can create different competition. So you get the competition, you get the transparency, you hold them accountable when they're not paying, and that's the best way to do it, and just let Florida do what it does and just keep crushing it.
Thank you, John. Gay, 2 minutes for your statement.
Yeah, my plan's a little different. And I do have to mention that Jimmy Patronis as CFO took $2 million from the insurance companies to not regulate. And what has to happen, the reason that insurance is so expensive, homeowners insurance is so expensive, is because of reinsurance. And reinsurance is insurance for the insurance companies. And so what needs to be done with the reinsurance is we need to cut out the reinsurance and back it up by the federal government. Have the federal government and FEMA, which means we have to fund FEMA, should cover the reinsurance for Florida. David Jolly has a different plan. He believes that Florida should pay for the 25% reinsurance. I believe that should be up to the federal government to pay that 25% and take that off of taxpayer bills.
John, 1 minute for your rebuttal.
Sure. So one of the difficulties with FEMA, and I think we can remember hurricane when Biden was in the administration, that they passed a lot of houses that had MAGA flags or Trump things. And there's that danger that the federal government, depending on who's in control, will wield its power to help conservatives or hurt conservatives. And, as much as I can, I would like to reduce the size of the federal government. If the federal government is offering assistance, absolutely, I'll bring those tax dollars to Florida, because I'm not going to say no because I'm an ideologist or something of that nature. But I'd rather see Florida. I mean, hurricanes in Florida is the sun going to rise in the morning? Is the moon going to come at night? Yeah, it's going to happen. So we should be preparing ourselves. And I'd rather see something where states help each other. I wouldn't necessarily want the federal government to be funding anything else, because I think the $40 trillion in debt, I think that's the biggest existential crisis we have that could totally destroy the nation.
Gay, any finishing statements? 1 minute.
John, I didn't know we had so much money until we went to war with Iran, but we apparently have enough money to be able to fund FEMA fully. I disagree with your assessment that FEMA walked by homes of people that had MAGA flags. That was a whole propaganda arm of Donald Trump that went out, and in the worst possible time in people's lives, when there was rhetoric around saving them. I believe that the federal government has the responsibility, not just here in Florida, but for California with the wildfires and Tornado Alley with tornadoes. We all experience something in climate that we're not addressing. So the other thing that we need to do is address climate, because the insurance companies are addressing climate change.
Great. Thank you, Gay. Would you support reducing or eliminating federal regulations that increase housing construction costs? Why not? Gay, you may answer first.
Yes, I would absolutely, because that is, and the 21st Century Road to Housing Act addresses that. It also addresses corporate greed and corporations going in and buying up large swaths of single-family homes so that nobody can afford them anymore. I would absolutely support changing code enforcement so that more houses can be built, single-family homes.
John, you may proceed.
Can you say the question again? Sorry.
Would you support reducing or eliminating federal regulations that increase housing construction costs?
Yeah, absolutely. The federal government needs to get the frick out of there. And I think, we should break up BlackRock and the other large corporations that are buying up a lot of single family homes. When the corporations own it, that's when they can inflate the price. They build certain neighborhoods. And another thing that I can do, and a reason why I think I should be a representative, is that I'm a Republican in the area. It's the most conservative district in the state. And, I know who the county commissioners are, and I think I could have influence. And even though a lot of those zoning issues and how much we expand, even though that's like state and local issues, that's something where, as a congressman, if it happens in my backyard, I care about it. So would be able to influence or talk and work with them in order to come up with solutions to, stop making so many houses and to just work to reduce the cost of how much they are.
Gay, would you like to close off your question?
Yes, I would like
1
to
minute.
say that because I'm a Democrat, I can still work with the other side. My father was a Republican and my mother was a Democrat. I've spent my entire life working across the aisle to get what I want.
John, 1 minute for your rebuttal.
Yeah, my mom reminded me that I have a history of dealing with Democrat women before this debate started. So that's kind of a funny point. But I do think still that there is somewhat of a good old boy system here that is not going to be able to be influenced by a Democrat. And, I'm running against Jimmy Patronis right now, not because I agree with every single thing that he does, every single thing that Republicans do, but because I'm America first. I want to push America first policies, and I want to fight for Northwest Florida. I'm not trying to fight for Mike Johnson or, whatever leadership. And it probably doesn't matter as much if you don't live within the district, but this is my home. This is what I want to fight for. And I know the players here. So I think it would have some kind of pull, but anyway, yeah.
Great. Small businesses are the backbone of this district. What is one federal regulation you would repeal or reform to help local businesses grow? Gay, you have 2 minutes.
One thing I would change are the tax codes. Small businesses are paying more taxes than large corporations, and that has been a killer for them. Also, tariffs have destroyed, I believe, 70 different small businesses in Northwest Florida who are suing the Trump administration to get their money back from the tariffs. Tariffs put an undue expense on these small businesses that can close them any day of the week. So tariffs, while the Supreme Court has said that tariffs cannot be enforced, the president is still trying to do that. So that is one of the top things.
Great. John, you have 2 minutes.
I think simplifying the tax code as well would be a good thing. I think really, breaking up the oligopolies, working in antitrust laws, and right now within especially tech spaces and things of that nature, the best bet that you have as an entrepreneur is to create some product that's so popular that you can sell it to Google or Microsoft later on. And that's not right. We should be able to have innovation. We should be able to have small businesses. Everything shouldn't just be turning into Walmart, right? So, I think that shutting down stuff during COVID certainly did a lot of damage and was a huge transfer of wealth to the super rich and then the poor, destroying the middle class. I think energy independence as well is going to be a huge thing. The cheaper that we can make things by allowing the free market to do what it needs to do, by getting rid of regulations at the federal government level, I think that's going to help your small businesses here locally.
Great. Gay, 1 minute for your rebuttal.
I tend to agree. I really don't have. I wish I could complain, John. I can't.
Yeah.
John, 1 minute.
So with tariffs, I do think that it should be something that falls more on the congressional side, because that is where it's enumerated in the powers. And if we have it just being with the president, it's going to flip flop back and forth. I think that there should be some kind of inability for the president to do so in the matters of national security. And that's a way to kind of avoid war too, because as far as elements of national power, you have diplomacy, information, military economy. So let's pull those other levers, but let's have it to a limit. So if other countries are using tariffs against us, we should be using those tariffs against them. And that's just the level of playing field out. That's just be America first and focus on the American worker first. So tariffs, there's good, there's bad, but we need to use them intelligently, and we need to do so for America First reasons.
Thank you. Now time with Jeffrey Edenfield.
Thank you. Our next topic will be our military and veterans. Florida's 1st Congressional District is home to a large military and veteran population, including active duty service members and retirees. My first question is, how would you work to strengthen our military while ensuring service members and veterans receive the care and benefits that they have earned? The first question will go to Dave Valimont.
Yeah, so we have a special duty in this district to support our military and our service members. And that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have to build infrastructure around our bases so that our military are war fighter ready. When we are asking our servicemen and women to go fight a war, the last thing they need to worry about is whether their spouse can afford groceries, whether their children can have daycare or schools that are up to snuff. Those are the things that we can do in Northwest Florida to make sure that our military is warfighter ready.
All right, John?
Yeah, as a Special Forces Green Beret captain who is serving this area, I know the difficulties that our military, our service members, our veterans, and their families face every day. And I've spent the last few years advocating for service members negatively impacted by the vaccine mandate on the Hill, talking about their needs. And we absolutely need a VA hospital here. We have 38,000 veterans who are being serviced at the clinic in Pensacola and nearly 30,000 at the clinic in Eglin Air Force Base. Yet the nearest hospital, the VA hospital, is in Biloxi. And with a hospital comes a lot more capabilities. So we need to get that hospital here. I'd fight for it by doing an interagency swap between the Navy hospital and the VA clinic in Pensacola. We need greater choice in community care. And I'd open up different experimental drugs to service members, veterans who are struggling. And I know of a lot of guys who've gone down to Central South America to do ibogaine, and it's done a great deal of help for them when it comes to recovering from PTSD and other things like that. My goal is to have multiple veterans on my staff from day one in order to liaise with the bases. And I was talking to my former battalion commander, who's going to be the group commander at 7th Group. And I said, hey, how awesome would it be if I were the congressman here and I could just talk to you about what do you need from the National Defense Authorization Act? So all about funding our military, taking care of them. And that's somewhere that I think has been especially weak under the current leadership, where Jimmy Patronis didn't even hire a veteran on his staff till I challenged him in the primary. And now he's playing catch up to try to make it look like he cares or is doing anything or is fighting. And I can tell you he is not.
Right. Gabe, do you have a response?
I absolutely do. I think that it's rich that all of my opponents have picked up on my let's build a full service VA hospital. I think that's fantastic. But when I talk about building a full service VA hospital, I'm not doing it just for election season. I'm talking about taking care of the 90,000 veterans that we have in this district, the ones that have to drive to Biloxi or they have to drive to Jacksonville to have any sort of services done. Now, I'm not going to by any means diss our VA because they provide quality care in the services that they can, but we don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough nurses. And with the recent DOGE cuts, we had 1,000 doctors leave the VA and 3,000 nurses. We don't need less. We need more for our veterans. And that's what we promised them. And that's what we should deliver on.
All right, John.
What I would say is if there was any implication that I'm doing this for political reasons, that I would point out to my service record that I stood up for my detachment when a detachment commander, I told my guys I would neither punish or reward them based on whether they got the COVID shot. And I suffered personally for it. That was standing up for our service members and veterans. And I think I'm the only candidate who can point out and say that I've been advocating for veterans for many years before I actually ever ran for political office. And although we agree that there is a VA hospital, I can guarantee you I'm doing that because I've worked with the VA. I know how difficult it is to get seen. It's insane, right? So, I think we absolutely need the hospital. It's ridiculous. Guys have to go all the way to Biloxi. I think it's ridiculous that Jimmy Patronis writes and says we need to have a study to see if we need a VA hospital here. That's
Exactly.
what we call some CYA right there because he hasn't been doing his job.
Right.
So let's get the hospital here. Let's look for options for community care. And one idea is that in the military, you have a blended retirement system where it used to be if you were 20 plus years, you would just have to get to 20 years for retirement. Later on, it became where you kind of had the options. So, when we get to the healthcare section, very excited to share some other ideas there. But I think there's a way to maybe look and see if veterans would rather just go out to the community and not deal with the VA at all.
All right. Our second question, sorry. What changes, if any, would you support to improve the Department of Veterans Affairs? Our first question will go to John. Frankman.
Yeah, I think just transparency, accountability, getting people to get the service that they need, right, as quickly as they can. And right now they're stretched thin, so they do need those doctors, those service providers. So we need to look at, what are the needs of our veterans and how do we end up supplying those. I would go for the more experimental treatment so that guys who are suffering with PTSD can get the help they need. I would make sure that we have less of a waiting time. And specifically for this district, you just need the hospital in the district, period. And I think that the quickest option for that is, like I said, give the VA the Navy hospital and give the Navy the VA clinic, because that Navy hospital is not used that much right now. That's the cheapest option. Although I certainly do want, more for our veterans as much as we can. We got to do it as the smartest that we can.
All right, moving again.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. So what changes, if any, would you support to improve the Department of Veterans Affairs?
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest things that I hear from veterans with relying on community care so much, and for those listening that don't understand, community care is when the VA farms you out to civilian care and to doctors in the civilian realm. We should have doctors that are specific for our veterans' needs. Civilian care is okay if you have a cold, but we also have a real problem with VA doctors and the system dealing with regular doctors on the outside. There's a disconnect between the information that one gets to the other. So that is not complete care for the patient. And that's ideally what we need, is complete care. And we need to fund our VA, not take money away from it.
Right. And John, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, with the VA, that's, we owe it to our veterans. So I'm about cutting a lot of different programs, agencies, combining them, but our veterans, they earn that support. So we need to make sure that they get it. And I do think that there is that difficulty where you go to community care, you go to this doctor, that doctor, who's tracking your records, what's going on. So that needs to be streamlined, some kind of a better system for sure. Yeah.
All right. And now for a follow-up question. How would you ensure those improvements happen without increasing wait times or reducing access to care? Dave Valimont.
Well, I think it's kind of ironic that the military is so good at logistics, right? I think that, the military is like the height of logistics. Why can't we use those same tactics in our VA to make sure that things are getting done? What I see in our VA is a bunch of red tape and bureaucratic levels that hoops you have to jump through at the top levels. We need to spend money instead of on administrators and pencil pushers into direct patient care. That's what needs to change with our VA.
All right, Don.
Yeah, I don't think that getting a hospital here that'll actually help with the wait times. Another thing that I plan to do with regards to just my staff that Petronas has not done is actually having veterans on his staff. I mean, it's just insane that you wait almost a year until you're challenged by an actual veteran who's calling you out on it, right? But if you have a veteran in your staff, they can assist with getting the VA claims going. That's one of the other issues. And I plan to get on House Armed Service Committee. I plan to get on VA affairs as well to try to help with that, because this area, like I said, 90,000+ veterans and the most veteran densely district in the country, 5 strategic bases. I think it deserves a veteran who's been fighting for them. But it shouldn't, I think any of the policies that I'm pushing would make those times much shorter, and we take care of them.
All right. Any follow-up, Dave Alma?
No, I do want to mention that, John's claim to fame is that he did not take the vaccine. And I have to say, I come from a world of sports medicine. That is what I do for a living. So I've been in team sports my entire life. And so what I don't get about taking the stand on the vaccine was that it's selfish and self-serving that you did not take the vaccine for your other for the people around you, because it's community care that you take vaccines for, not necessarily for you, but to take care of your fellow service members. And I think it's terribly selfish on your part not to not to take do the vaccine.
Yeah, well, I'll certainly respond to that. The COVID shot killed many, many people, and you only have to look at the vaccine adverse events reporting system to know that.
So did
Uh,
COVID.
COVID, that's arguable because of the way that data was tracked. If you got hit by a car, but you were tested for COVID and came up positive, you're counted as a COVID death. And I think that's another place where we saw big pharma, the Democrat administration, really pushing on mandates and other things of that nature. Now, I didn't get the shot first and foremost for faith principles, because every one of those shots used aborted fetal cells. Human embryo kidney 293 was used in the testing and or testing of development. But later on, you look at the health risks. And as far as being a threat for others, I did get myself tested for antibodies. And I showed that I had the antibodies, and I submitted that when I took the religious exemption. So I don't know why COVID is different, where all of a sudden, if you already have the disease, you don't have the antibodies. Whereas, we used to think of that for the chicken pox, et cetera. So that's where I think science really fell off. And that's where I think we really need to rein in big pharma. And I would be fighting for a medical freedom amendment and to hold big pharma liable. Because I don't know, I've known too many people who've been injured by that thing. A 24-year-old with 3 heart attacks, another guy who has Guillain-Barré syndrome afterwards. And I was just part of a documentary that came out called Duty to Disobey, and I'd encourage you to watch it. It talks about what happened with the DoD with the vax mandate.
And I would encourage everybody to Google whether fetal material is used in a COVID shot.
All right, and we will be going to a quick break, and we will be
And we are back. Thank you so much for everybody that's watching. If you haven't done so already, make sure you follow Conservative Circle and Freedom Uncensored, bringing you more debates, politics, and controversial takes just as this one. Make sure you go check out the candidates on their own platforms to make sure to see which candidate is the one that best fits your voting category. Moving on with the topics, we will continue with artificial intelligence and data centers. So, AI requires massive data centers to consume significant amounts of electricity and water. If large-scale data centers were proposed in Northwest Florida, how would you balance economic growth, environmental concerns, and the needs of local communities? John, you may answer first, 2 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Just talking to people in Northwest Florida in the 4 counties, especially north of I-10, those farmers, they don't want AI data centers, and I'm going to try to deliver on that to the best extent that I can at the federal level. Because there's danger with the AI data centers. One, we don't know what the health risks are. Two, there's environmental concerns. They take up a lot of water, and we already need to protect our aquifer up there. They take up a lot of electricity, and we already have pretty stretched infrastructure where people are complaining about how rapidly everything is being developed. And then with regards to the Fourth Amendment, where we've seen all these flock cameras, and we can imagine how that might be used to spy on Americans and to track our movements. There's a lot of concerns I have about flock cameras. So what I would propose is no federal funding for them here. If they do come here, if there's no way to avoid it, they provide their own water, they provide their own electricity, they aren't stretched on our infrastructure, and they're held liable for any damages that they make. And we just continue to protect our Fourth Amendment rights.
Great. Okay, 2 minutes, your statement.
Right. We do not want data centers in Northwest Florida, period. And Okaloosa County and Walton County has already made the move to make sure that they're banned. And we need to do that in our other 3 counties as well, because this is what happens. We don't know. Data centers take up a ton of water and a ton of electricity. We know that the electricity can double and triple your electricity bill, because it takes that kind of electricity to make sure that the cooling system works. Well, they cool it with water, and so that water goes straight back into our aquifer, and we already have contaminated water in this region because of our military bases. And so we have to make sure that we're not adding insult to injury. Also, it is a overwhelming nuisance if you've ever heard what data centers sound like. So if any data centers were to be built, which I am not for them, they would have to be out and away. They would have to have their own cooling system and their own electricity source, not living off of our electrical sources. But again, I believe that AI data centers should be banned, and we shouldn't have them at all. Now, one thing about the flock cameras really quickly. So in Escambia County, we bought flock cameras and signed a contract, and we used opioid money to purchase flock cameras. John is completely right. Flock cameras are an invasion of our privacy and Big Brother watching us. We need to complain, and we need to make sure our county commissioners know we don't want our opioid crisis money used on flock cameras.
Great. Thank you, Gabe. 1 minute, John, your statement.
I mean, I don't really have a response. That's fine.
Okay.
I don't know.
Great.
See, Republicans and Democrats can get along.
Following question. Artificial intelligence is expected to transform millions of jobs over the next decade. What specific steps would you take to prepare workers, students, veterans, and military families in Florida's 1st District for an AI-driven economy? John, you may answer first.
I mean, first and foremost, I've kind of said that I don't think that the education is a federal issue. So that's not something that I would want to try to make legislation to push. But, just as a general advice, it's a tool. And like a tool, you need to make sure that you use it, it doesn't use you. We've seen with smartphones and things of that nature, kids getting addicted to that, using it too much, learning essential skills. So I would encourage, and even though it's not a federal thing, I would be talking to the school officials, or what am I thinking of? The school board candidates, and saying, hey, let's not just have our classrooms cluttered with this, but let's smartly teach people how to use it as a tool, because it's only as good as how you use it. But just to have some limitations to make sure you get back to the basics of arithmetic, of grammar, et cetera. So you have that baseline, so you don't just forget. Just like in the military, if you use a map and compass, we never forget that, even if we have GPS, and it helps develop your brain in a certain way. That's why I would recommend for the use of AI later on.
Okay, 2 minutes for your statement.
I think there is federal legislation that can be made to regulate AI. We can talk about that AI is coming to Northwest Florida, but it's already here. And we're concerned about people your age losing jobs to AI. What we have to do is integrate AI and use it in a way that is beneficial so that we don't lose jobs. But we have to make sure that we're not losing jobs. Also, regulation in the classroom, what we can and cannot use AI for. There's been a ton of crackdown on writing papers and taking things off of ChatGPT into the classroom. And it's easy enough to figure out. I think at this point, people know the difference between AI and not AI, right? But I think that legislation is warranted so that AI does not take over jobs and make it so that people your age can't find a job.
John, 1 minute for your follow-up statement.
Yeah, sure. At first I thought the question was more geared towards how are we going to teach students and individuals here? And I thought the teaching aspect is much more, I trust the teacher in Florida. I trust the parents in Florida more than I do unelected bureaucrats in DC. For AI, there can certainly be some safeguards that are put in place at the federal level. So that's not something that I'm necessarily against.
Okay, 1 minute.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Today, OpenAI released a statement about their AI system, ChatGPT, advancing enough to the capability of stealing information from another company's AI system. In your district, what measures would you put in place to prevent AI from advancing at such a critical rate to the point where it could obtain your citizens' confidential information? Okay, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think that goes back to actually sitting down and understanding AI to the point of being able to regulate it through legislation. There is a working group on Capitol Hill that is working on legislation and what we can do. I think that it's more of instead of a federal government issue, I think it's a state issue locally. And that's probably it.
John, 2 minutes for your statement.
Yeah, how to keep, I think that you already have, if people steal your information, then that's illegal. You just have to have different ways of enforcing it. So I think that's on, local law enforcement or the FBI, if it's interstate, to find different ways of cracking down and tracking and making sure. And if you need to have stricter penalties in order to deter people from doing it, if AI makes it easier, then that's certainly the case and something you can do.
Great. Okay, any follow-up statement?
No, I agree with him that through legislation, we can put penalties on people for doing things like that. But there also has to be some sort of way of determining those fines, those fees, the jail time that people could get. And that's through legislation.
John, any follow-up statement?
Yeah, it's just making sure you figure out what should be at the state, what should be at the federal. And I think when you have from one state to another, let's do federal from within the state. I really love Florida and I trust it to crack down. Although we do have a lot of flock cameras here, so I'd like to see that go away.
Great, thank you. For any of our viewers, please make sure you drop your questions in the comment section for our final segment. Now our time back to Jeffrey Edenfield.
All right, thank you. And now for our next topic, education and students. Education continues to be a major issue for families, teachers, and students across the district. What role should the federal government play in a K-12 education? Our first question goes to John.
So I've absolutely loved education. I have a bachelor's in chemical physics. I have a master's in systematic theology, and that kind of formation education has really helped make me who I am. And my mother spent decades as a teacher, a special needs teacher, actually. She has a BCBA, and I've seen her just do so many wonders. And I think that education is so important, so important. I trust the parents, the educators here in Northwest Florida, that more than I do the unelected bureaucrats in the federal government. And the 10th Amendment, it states that anything not relegated specifically to the federal government within the Constitution should belong at the state level, because we better understand our problems at the local level. We better understand it at the state level. And I trust the values of Northwest Florida, the first district, more than I do the values of those bureaucrats in DC. So I'd like to see the federal government not have a role, and I'd like to get rid of the Department of Education if elected, and just bring that back to the states. However, I will have conversations and maintain those relationships with the state house, the state senate, the locals, where if the federal government does cut any services, especially for special needs, we find some way to recalibrate and get those resources at the state and local level.
All right, and now, Gay.
Yeah, so eliminating the Department of Education would eliminate Title I schools, would eliminate services for the disabled, would eliminate money for low-income schools. We've seen what happened now with Florida and their voucher program and where it's leaving our schools. It's leaving our schools broke. What I would like to do is invest that 10% back into our public schools and have Florida pay our teachers. How about that? Let's pay our teachers their worth. You know that Florida is the dead last in the country with teacher pay, and that's by design. You want to leave it up to the states, but you see what's happened with the voucher program. So the voucher program, when a child decides they're going to leave public school, they take $8,000 with them. And there have been stories over and over again of parents buying paddle boards and going on vacation and then sending their kids back to public school, because educating a student or educating a child at home is not easy. And anybody that lived through COVID would know that. Our teachers deserve a raise, and our schools deserve to be funded so that people are running in the doors trying to get their kids in public schools. We shouldn't. I believe in school choice, but if you want to put your kid in a private school, how about you take your child to private school? You don't take our public funded money that's supposed to go into our public education and take that and go on vacation with it. We need to fund our public schools.
Thank you. And Don, your rebuttal?
Yeah, I'd absolutely love to see our teachers paid more, but I don't think there's anything that the federal government legislates specifically. Like, I don't think I'm going to get elected to Congress and say, hey, I'm going to give a pay raise to teachers in Okaloosa, Walton, and Escambia County. So it's a nice sentiment, but I don't think it's what the federal representative is going to actually have control over. But, you know, my wife and I, we just got married. God willing, we have children. We would love to homeschool them. And I think you have to have those options. And I think that when you have more competition, that's what breeds excellence. And you can certainly have and watch out for any fraud, waste, and abuse within the school voucher system, if that's of concern. But if the parent thinks that they're the better educator, that's the nucleus of our country right there, is the family unit, father, mother, children. So I'd like to see them to get those tax dollars, and I'd like to see innovative ways for public schools to try to compete.
Right, and Dave, for your rebuttal.
It is hard for me to believe that we would take funds and education away from our children. That doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. We will move on to our next question. How would you help students prepare for today's workforce while respecting the role of parents and local school boards? Dave, this question is to you first.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey, you're cutting out. I couldn't hear the middle part of that question.
Okay. The question is, how would you help students prepare for today's workforce while respecting the role of parents and local school boards?
Well, I believe that to prepare our students for the workforce, I believe that we need to make technical school completely free. I believe that we should make college more affordable. I don't know if everybody knows exactly how expensive college is, but also not everybody needs to go to college. There are good jobs that we need qualified people to go into. We need people to go into to general contracting. We need people to go into plumbing. We need people to go into electricians. We need people to go and enter the workforce and make it free. We also need to support our workforce by supporting our unions and having workers' rights first and foremost.
Right. Now, John.
Yeah, I mean, college is super expensive because the federal government is putting so much money into it. And when colleges know that they can just get a bunch of money from the federal government, that's what's increasing the prices. And, you know, my wife, like I said, is from Spain, and it's cheaper to be educated over in Europe. So I'd like to see way, way less federal government actual involvement. And you can't make college free. Making it free, that means that someone else is paying for it. That's getting back to that invisible tax of inflation when we're not actually looking at, well, who's going to pay for it? So I would like to encourage businesses to start doing some scouting for the smart high school students. You want to hire someone for an engineer degree? Why don't you go look at your SAT scores, your GPAs? You want to put somebody through college that they have to work for you for 5 years? Maybe let's consider that. I also did ROTC, that paid for my college. So I would encourage military service to any young person who's interested in doing that as a way of serving their country and also getting their education paid for. But I just don't want to see, much more federal assistance, because I think that's what's driving up the costs.
All right. For Gabe, for your rebuttal.
Technical schools should be free. That's it.
We'll move on to our next question. What changes, if any, would you support regarding student loans or college affordability? The question will be for John.
Yeah, I mean, school loans are just insane. And that's kind of a form of debt slavery in a sense, that you're taking out a loan that high. So I know there was some talk of capping interest rates. I mean, that might make some sense to me. But I just advise young people that, hey, if your degree isn't going to get you the job that you need, don't get that degree. There still is personal responsibility. We don't want to make other taxpayers have to pay for your bad decision. But yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking about Bill Clinton earlier. Bill Clinton made a mistake in that in a bill that he passed as president, made it legal so that you could not sue, or you cannot file for bankruptcy because of student loan debt. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody that has student loan debt should file for bankruptcy, but because there's not a threat of bankruptcy there, the student loans can charge you whatever they want to. There's zero competition at the federal level. That rule needs to change so that people are not mortgaging their first home to pay off their student loans. College should be affordable. And I don't agree with John in that colleges, because they get so much money from the federal government, that the cost of colleges goes up. That doesn't make any sense.
All right, John, for your rebuttal.
Yeah, I mean, it's because you get more money from the federal government, and now they know they can take more money. Now that it's kind of like insurance premiums. If they know that they're going to get this certain amount, if they're able to charge that, then they're going to make the individual pay it. So that's kind of the concern, that rather than allowing them to be competitive without having certain federal assistance, for instance, you have Hillsdale is not that expensive, and it doesn't take any federal funds. So that would be an example of where if you don't have the federal funds there, you can give the training cheaper. But I'm very much a free market guy. And I think that if we just allow colleges to operate in that kind of free market economy, and, I like the idea of getting more tech workers out there. It's certainly needed. We're seeing the average age going up very, very high. I would think that would be a great opportunity for any of those entrepreneurs who've already founded their way to put someone through that school, and then have them commit to work for a number of years, or maybe there's some kind of penalty or you don't get the bonus, something of that nature.
Do you have a rebuttal?
No, actually, my internet just cut out, and I have no idea what he said.
I'm gonna use that if I ever am like, oh wait, I just no.
Exactly.
So just the follow up for both candidates. We'll start with Gabe Valimont. How would your proposal affect taxpayers?
How would it affect taxpayers? Is that what you said?
Yes, your proposal for our education.
Yes. Again, we are living in a world of oligarchs at this current juncture. Y'all, we just had our first trillionaire and his crown put on top of his head. We live in an economy where the rich are getting richer and the middle class is being fleeced. We have to make sure that the ultra rich are paying their fair share. And that is how we continue to keep programs like feeding our children with SNAP benefits and providing health care through Medicaid that the state of Florida and my Republican friends would like to see go away.
All right, John.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have the federal government funding colleges to the same extent, that's going to lower the amount of taxes that's needed. And, we don't have a revenue problem at the federal government. We have a spending problem. So that's where we really need to be cutting so many different agencies, waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm a huge fan of single subject spending bills. I think it's ridiculous that right now Republicans have the House, they have the Senate, and we're still just passing these huge omnibus packages at the last minute. That's what's driving up a lot of the inflation right now. Now, I'll say inflation was worse and the federal deficit went up faster under Biden, but it still goes up under Republicans. So I think we need...
That is untrue. That is not true. Anybody can look that up very easily.
Okay. So I think we need Republicans to take this seriously, to try to fight down the deficit. And you start it by slashing some of those programs like going to colleges.
All right. Now, before we get to our final topic, we want to do something a little bit more fun. We are going to play each of the candidates' campaign video. And I want y'all to interact. Everyone in the chat, please interact on whose video you think cooked Jimmy more. So whoever cooked Jimmy more, comment in the chat who you think, and we're going to begin with Gabe Valimont.
Welcome to Florida's 1st Congressional District, Jimmy Petronis. I'm going to give you a little tour today since you don't actually live here.
You know, in case you want to visit sometime.
Our home has a unique culture, a rich military history, and a food and music scene that's worth the visit. When you get here, you better slow down for the 3 Mile Bridge speed trap. It's pretty easy to miss. Most tourists do, but we'll forgive you this time.
You have to spare some time for our district's vibrant art scene. Well, that turned out pretty damn good.
And in case you get hungry, we'll save you a plate, because we treat strangers like our own. There's so many reasons to visit our district. But what really makes this place special is its people, especially the ones who step up to represent their hometown. Jimmy, your choices have left us with some serious challenges. Cost of food, housing, insurance, just to name a few. Hell, we're bigger than some numbers on a spreadsheet.
And we deserve a full-time leader, not a part-time tourist. That's why I'm running for Congress.
District 1, I want to represent you because I'm one of you.
It's gonna take all of us, y'all.
So dust yourself off
And find something orange.
Jimmy, bless your heart. We hope you enjoyed your visit.
But we'll take it from here.
I'm Gabe Valimont, and I approve this message.
I enjoy that. Bless your heart. That's hilarious.
That's the closer right there. Yeah.
You know why I say bless your heart? Because after the special election and Jimmy won, he went straight to social media to say, bless your heart. You're an angry woman.
Oh.
So that's why I said, bless your heart.
All right. Now let's go to John Frankman.
I'm John Frankman, a former Green Beret and candidate for Congress in Florida's 1st Congressional District. Right now, I'm here in Panama City, part of Florida's 2nd Congressional District, where Congressman Neil Dunn is stepping down, leaving an open seat. This district deserves a representative who was born and raised here, who has lived here his entire life, and who has never called anywhere else home. Especially not Florida's 1st Congressional District. That's why I'm proudly endorsing Jimmy Petronis for Florida's 2nd Congressional District. Florida's 2nd District is different from the 1st, and it needs a different kind of representative. Unlike CD1, the 2nd doesn't have the same strong military and veteran presence. So it makes sense that it would be represented by someone who isn't a veteran, who hasn't lived the challenges service members and their families face every day, and whose top priority isn't fighting for our troops and vets. Florida's 2nd is also not nearly as conservative as the 1st. It's better suited for a more moderate Republican, Someone more focused on keeping party leadership happy than standing uncompromisingly with the conservative patriots in Northwest Florida. And finally, because the 2nd District includes Tallahassee, our state capital, it's the perfect fit for lifelong career politicians. For all these reasons, Jimmy Patronis is the right choice for Florida's 2nd Congressional District. Jimmy, you're not from the 1st District. You've never lived there. You were born and raised right here in the 2nd, and this is where you've built your life. So Jimmy Patronis, go home. Run right here in the district you actually belong in. Florida's 2nd Congressional District is waiting for you.
It's waiting for you, Jimmy.
That's right. I enjoy that, John. That's good.
Thank you. Thank you. Definitely, obviously lower budget than your video, a bit better production value, but I had to have some fun. And I don't know if you recognize the Captain Andersons too.
I saw that. They didn't catch you out in front trying to film a commercial.
No.
Oh, he wasn't there either.
Make sure you comment whose video you think is better, who cooked Jimmy more. But let's go ahead and go to our final topic, healthcare. And Jared has that topic.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, moving on to our final topic, healthcare. DSA has mentioned that one of their biggest campaign trails is free healthcare. So, as candidates for the 1st Congressional District, what would you do, or do you agree and disagree that free healthcare is a possibility for Floridians, or do you think you can make a change in the House or in Congress to actually make this possible? Yay, you may answer first, 2 minutes.
Absolutely, universal health care is a possibility. We can save so much money on our health care if we do preventative medicine. The problem with our healthcare system now is that it is not transparent. And if we had Medicare for all, which means the negotiated prices that Medicare puts on their list, then you know exactly what you owe as soon as you come out of the doctor's. That's the problem with our healthcare system. You go in for a procedure and you have no idea what you're coming out to pay. Also, the prices for prescription drugs are outrageous. Biden negotiated a $35 cap on insulin, but we need that on EpiPens. We need that on everyday medication. We do all the R&D for pharmaceuticals in this country, yet we pay more for pharmaceuticals than any other country. It makes no sense. We have to make sure that we are taking care of our people and that we need to fully fund Medicaid. Medicare for all is the way that we get back a healthy economy and a healthy American people.
John, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah. So as someone who is affected by the shot mandate, who's been fighting big pharma, definitely have strong opinions and care about healthcare is managed. And I'd be a fan of having the health savings accounts rather than giving money to the insurers. You give it directly to the people, they put it in their account, then they can use that money. We do have to have favored nation status where we're not paying more for drugs than any other country is doing. We need to also have that price transparency so that we know exactly how much a procedure or a drug is going to cost. And we do need to be fighting for healthcare, not sick care. Because right now, the way that modern medicine is set up is you're not getting treated until the problem has gone very far. So we need to just keep people healthy. So in that way, very much a fan of the MAHA policies, staying healthy in order to lower how much healthcare will cost for the person. I don't think it can be universal. I think when we had Obamacare, that drove up healthcare prices to a great extent, and just seeing how Europe goes and pays a lot of money for it. I think we're a free market economy. We need to give it back to the people, but not have the insurance companies rip people off.
Okay, any follow-up?
Absolutely. Corporate greed at the insurance level, health insurance is rampant. And if we don't do something if we don't regulate the insurance companies, which regulation is a bad word to Republicans, and I understand that, but if we don't regulate the insurers, they will always take advantage of us. We cannot allow them to negotiate different prices for the same service that we are getting with, like if you have United Healthcare and I have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and there are two different prices for the same thing, and you don't end up knowing what you're going to cost, that's unfair to the sick. And any sort of care denied any sort of wait time on care is care denied. So we have to make sure that we are getting our people taken care of. And the way that we do that is by putting more people in the pool of insurers through the ACA. And if we can't do universal health care immediately, then we need to make sure that we are giving subsidies for those people who can't afford their premiums right now, because they are out of control. We've had 1.2 million people drop out of the ACA in the last 3 months. You know what happens when people drop out of the pool of care? Prices go up. And that's not just for the ACA, that is all insurance.
Thank you, Jay. John, any follow-up?
They probably dropped out of ACA because it didn't work for them. And that's where I'm just concerned about universal health insurance. But as far as, you want to say regulation, I think that I could say with antitrust laws, with having breaking up so that they're not able to price gouge on people when you have just a few insurance companies that are spending a lot, I would just make it more for a free market. And even though I have some access to the VA, I'll tell you, I much prefer going to different doctors for more holistic treatments and things like that. And it's much cheaper. I can go there, I can buy my ivermectin, I can get seen quickly. And because they're not taking insurance money, they're able to charge just a lot less. And it's when you get the insurance in that they're getting charged a lot. And that's just, it's coming from somewhere. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So I just like to see the money go directly to the people where they can then choose the service they want with the doctor they want.
Thank you.
I don't think a free lunch is considered, it should be in the realm of healthcare. That's like saying free lunch for our kids. That is, healthcare is a right, is a human right. Healthcare is a human right. Let me say it again. Thank you. Sorry.
During our current administration's term, we've seen the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and Floridians have mixed opinions about it. Abortion rights in Florida is something that is going to decide which candidates the voters choose. Is there something you would change or support for the current access to abortion in the district? John, you may answer first. 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm 100% pro-life. I'm not going to apologize for it whatsoever. Life starts at conception. We know that from science. We know that when the sperm meets the egg, that's a different genetic material that's different from the father, different from the mother. And the cells are multiplying. So if we're looking for life on another planet, that is what we'd look for. So I think that the overturning of Roe v. Wade, it didn't just mean that was relegated to a state's issue. I think that's what weak, spineless people on DC say because they don't want to take a stake in it. And that's what a lot of the rhinos are doing right now. I'd like to support and fight for a pro-life amendment where we honor and recognize that life starts at conception. Because within our Constitution, within the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it's the most fundamental right on which all other rights are founded. And one place to cut government spending, federal spending, immediately would be anywhere that supports abortion.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Absolutely. When I'm in Congress, I will codify Roe versus Wade. And because, let me tell you, I am a woman and know that the best decision about a woman's health care is by the woman and her doctor. And I don't believe that your religious beliefs should interfere with your legislative duties. We can talk about how John and feel about abortion rights. Nobody likes abortion. Nobody's like, hey, I'm gonna go get an abortion. It's great. Nobody does that. But what we should have is the medical procedure available to us if it is warranted. And also, people that are against abortion rights, are pro-life. They're going to preach pro-life and all that other stuff. Well, John, what are you going to do when all those kids are here? Because you certainly don't want to feed them. You don't want to give them health care. You don't want to make sure that they're taken care of, but you want to make sure that everybody's having a baby. That's not always a feasible option. And it's also not your decision.
Thank you, Kay. John, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal.
Yeah. So, saying every woman has a right over her own body, that's one thing, but you don't have a right to kill your own baby. And that's a different human being. And to say that I don't do anything or I don't care, what I would point to is that I spent 4 years in Catholic seminary where I'd marched at the March for Life. I prayed outside of abortion clinics. And for every abortion clinic, they have a pro-life pregnancy center. I've given money to the Sisters of Life who will house single mothers who are in danger. I've given money to other pro-life organizations. I think you make it easier for adoption, but ending an innocent life is never the answer. If we think that murder is wrong, what's the difference between right after the baby's out of the womb and beforehand? And I do care for those women. It is a very difficult situation, but I would say that I have done things in my life, and federal government, that's not the answer for it. It's the local charities, it's the churches. And if you free up, the 40% of money that everybody's paying the federal government, they're going to have a whole lot more to give to those organizations.
Gay, 1 minute, final statement.
Give money, make sure that Planned Parenthood is funded, because that is for women's health care, not for abortion services only. And I think that needs to be very clear with everybody that we need to make sure that women have the right to make the decisions about their own body. And in the same breath that you say I shouldn't have to take a mandated COVID vaccine, then you're telling women that they can't make their own mind up about their body. And I think that's
because it's not their body. That's a different body. That's why I take that stance.
Thank you, guys. All right, back to our main host, Jeffrey Edenfield.
Thank you. And now we will go to our closing statements. John Frankman will deliver the first closing
Sure. Well, yeah, sorry, flipped through notes. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, Jared, for hosting this. Like, very impressed with you two for stepping up, inviting us on, having us interviewed. And it's just great delight to see young people interested in such a thing. And thanks for everybody for tuning in and taking the civic responsibility to know about their legislators. We just talked about a lot of topics during this debate, and I pray that I showed why I'm the best candidate for Congress right now. With regards to the military and veterans, I served. I understand the difficulties that they went through, and I've been fighting for veterans for years and have a plan of action. With regards to the economy, I'm Republican Liberty Caucus endorsed. I will fight to slash the federal government and fight to help with affordability with regards to those causes. With regards to healthcare, I have a plan of action for healthcare with the health savings accounts, with the MAHA movement that's going to help lower the cost and make our country healthier. With regards to education, I made it clear I trust parents in Northwest Florida more than I trust DC bureaucrats, unelected DC bureaucrats up north. And with regards to AI data centers, I've made statements and I made it clear that we're going to protect Northwest Florida. I've spoken to the farmers north of I-10. That's something I'm going to fight. So voters have a choice August 18th. They can choose between Jimmy Patronis, who is an establishment Republican who doesn't live in the district, doesn't care about this area, or they can choose a fighter for faith and freedom, someone who's already shown that they're willing to sacrifice at great personal cost. So on August 18th, don't vote for a placeholder puppet Patronis, vote for John Frankman. And then on November 3rd, after I win, don't vote gay, vote the Green Beret. Thank you so much.
Oh, I like that. I mean, I don't like it, but I like it.
I know. Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, I'm sure you'll do great too. But yeah.
And now, Gay, for your closing statement.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeffrey and Jared. Y'all have been awesome. And thank you, John. It is always great to be able to have these open debates. I have asked Jimmy Patronis to debate me over and over again, and he has decidedly avoided doing one of these. He won't even hold a town hall. So
Yeah.
we need to see what's going on in Northwest Florida. If you don't know the people of Northwest Florida, you absolutely cannot represent them. So what's going on with the people of Northwest Florida? Their number one complaint is affordability right now. And we can throw that word around and make fun of it, but simply the administration cannot tell you what you are feeling at the gas pump. And when you buy groceries, you know that everybody is going broke. And what we have to do right now is vote for good people. I'm a part of a coalition of congressional candidates that are running that have 5 pillars of things that we believe in. One of those things is term limits. I believe that we should have term limits for Congress. I believe that we should have 4-year terms, and I believe that you shouldn't have to run every 2 years, because when you're running every 2 years, you can't do your job. And I believe you get 2 of those terms. I believe Senate terms can remain at 6 years, but you only get 2 of those 2. You know why? Because you should not die in those seats. Another thing you shouldn't do in Congress is stock trade. We are seeing a lot of self-enriching politicians, both on the left and the right now, who are not doing their jobs. They're abdicating their jobs, but getting rich in the process. We need to make sure that we end Citizens United and get money out of politics. The reason we have a millionaire as our president, and a trillionaire who is able to buy elections is because of Citizens United. We have to end Citizens United. We also need to make sure that the Supreme Court has ethics rules, and that they have to follow rules as well. We have to bring good people back to government, y'all, so that we can all buy in, so that we can all prosper from a federal government that we pay taxes to, and those dollars should come back here to solve our problems. My name is Gay Valimont. I want to be your next representative, but I am not on your August ballot. I will be on your November ballot.
All right, I want to first start off by thanking the candidates for attending this debate. Thank you so much. But whenever you do leave, make sure you go on our post section on YouTube, and you get to decide who won this debate. So make sure you go vote. Thank you so much. Make sure you vote August 18th. Make sure you vote on November 3rd. Garrett, any closing statement?
Wishing you guys the best of luck. Stay energetic. Keep your mission going. Make sure you connect with your communities, and hope to see you next time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gay.